Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, our weekly interview series looking at the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. And each week we have a guest who shares their story about their sense of identity, their sense of belonging. And this week we've got a really special guest in Glenda Caesar. I met Glenda a few months back and I was so impressed. And when she spoke about her story, I thought, wow, Glenda is someone who here it says she's an advocate. She's a Windrush National national organization member. She's so much. It's amazing the stuff which Glenda is doing for so many people. So Glenda, it's a real absolute privilege to be sharing the platform with you this afternoon. And Glenda, I'm going to start off by asking the question which I always ask, which is, can you tell me a little bit about what it was that gave you your sense of identity, sense of belonging as you were growing up?
My parents, I would say, my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my family as well, because I come from a family of seven. I'm
Yeah,
a middle child.
yeah,
Um, three older, three younger. And I came to England when I was 3 months old from
yeah,
Dominica. Obviously, I don't know Dominica because I came as a baby. But um, growing up in the UK, going to school, my family was my best friend because there's five girls and two boys. So there's a
right.
boy on each. I shouldn't say call them boys because they're men now, aren't they? They're grown up. So there's men on there's one man on that side and one man on that side of me, and then there's two women on that side and two women on that side, older and younger. So
Yeah,
we were our own little gang, and
yeah,
we lived in a house in bang in the middle of our street. My mum and dad bought a 7 bedroom house. We
wow,
Yeah, when they came over, daddy came first, and then mummy came afterwards with me and my aunt. Um, and we lived in a one room when mummy split it into a front room and a bedroom, two double bedrooms at the back, and a curtain in the middle with a little front room with the gram. Didn't have television because
yeah,
you couldn't afford television back in those
yeah,
days. They
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and then mummy, once mummy had had my little sister, which was my very first live dog. I called her my little black dolly because her skin was much darker than the rest of us. We're very fair, and the others are sort of like honey colored, but she was my baby. She still is. I still call her the baby, even though she's a big woman. But yes, mummy and daddy then purchased a house, and we moved to the house bang in the middle of the street. So
Yeah.
every time I heard that song, "My House in the Middle," of shit, yeah, that's us. But this is where so I grew up there. We all grew up there together. Um Went to school, secondary. I got my mum paid for me to take private lessons, typing lessons, because I wanted to be a secretary. I was
Right.
adamant from a young age to be a secretary. I was be typing, but mummy made me take private typing lessons. I'm really sorry, but the sun's coming in my front room really strong.
Right. No worries, no worries. I can see it, but it's
Yeah,
it's it's fine.
yeah. So I always knew that I was going to be leading in anything I do. It would be towards me being some kind of doing secretarial position.
Mhm.
And mummy and daddy were very adamant when they spoke to us about growing up and education that they wanted us to at least get a government job. Back then,
Right.
there's a government job. Later on, people called it civil servants, but it was either you went to work for the post office because it was
Yeah.
headed by the Queen, or the NHS, or London Transport back then. So that's what she was pushing us towards, and that's where some of us ended up. I know I ended up there, but I became a mother at a very young age.
Yeah.
It didn't stop me from knowing where I wanted to go. I knew where I
Right.
wanted.
Right.
Uh,
Right. So you came across, but you grew up here,
yeah,
England. You've got a London accent. Which part of London was it that you resided?
I'm from Hackney.
You're from Hackney,
I'm proud to say
right?
I'm from Hackney. I'm proud.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay,
in me.
it's in you. So, so you, growing up, you had all the influences around you of growing up in Hackney, growing up in London, and you felt. Would you say you felt British? You felt English? How? What would you say? What was your sense of who you were?
Well, 100%, of course. I sounded. I was.
Mhm.
We came from Islington, and back then in Islington, you was a proper, what they would say, Cockney. You
Right.
was proper. And then moving to Hackney, it still had that sense of that accent, but it was sort of
Mhm.
like a different kind of lingo. But that's me, and
Mhm.
that's what we grew up. So it was back then Hackney was so diverse that everybody was friends. On
Right.
our road we had Bengali family, the Indian family, Pakistani family, Grenadians, Antiguans, Jamaicans, Scottish, Irish, all on this one road. So everyone was friends. So, you picked up the different accents
Mhm.
uh, through fun and that because it was a sense of community back then. A sense
Yeah.
of community. So we didn't have any arguments. But I went to school, got on with everyone, did all of my education. I had my first child at the age of 16,
Right.
my daughter. So it sort of like interfered with my schooling a bit, but I was adamant that it was not going to interfere with my schooling,
Right.
my education. So once I had learned to type, I could touch type
Right.
to 16. I'd be talking to you and I'd be like, typing away, which I could still do. So that, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I can't talk to you. What's wrong? I can't stay on the phone. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No worries.
This there, that's my son. Yeah.
So
So
you were touch typing. You could touch type
yeah,
and
I could touch time. And once I was able, I mean, at the age of 18, I was a mother of three.
right.
But once my children were able to go to school, I then was taking various different positions within the NHS because I joined agencies. So I went into NHS. But my main objective of going into the NHS was that my father, um, in early ages, he got sectioned because
Right.
he was a diabetic and he would have seizures and fits, and they didn't have a clear understanding um, of the diabetes and the way it affected the Caribbean community. So I always said I wanted to get into mental health to understand why would they section my dad.
Yeah.
So I managed to get a position, a part-time position uh, in administration in mental health, and it expanded from there. And I stayed in mental health for a very long time for me to get an understanding. So I enjoyed that. I went to work, while my children were at school. And once they were of age for them to sort of like take over and understand, I didn't have to support them financially anymore. Um, and this was like a late age. I think I was 48, 50, because I was
Hmm.
still working, but wanted to I wanted to sort of like sit down for a bit and sort of like
Sit
retire.
back, relax. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what I did. And but within that time, my mum had taken a holiday to Dominica,
Hmm.
and she fell sick over there, and she actually passed away in Dominica.
Oh no.
uh, I wanted to go to be with my mum. So, the minute she fell sick and we found out, I thought I'd be able to sort of like just go to the post office, get a passport, because back then you could.
Hmm.
But I think that's when I found out that I actually wasn't British because I couldn't get a British passport. So all the time I'm thinking I'm British because I didn't have the, I didn't have any finance for me to even think about holidays, because when you're a young mum raising children, you
Yeah.
haven't got any money anyway.
Yeah.
Furthest you can go is take them for a drive to the country and come back. That's
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or try to take them to the different museums. Just say it's a holiday, babes. That's what mummy
Yeah.
can afford right now. Um, but it was when after mummy passed away, I was like, oh God, what do I do now? So my sisters and them, they ended up going to Dominica to obtain my birth certificate. Because when I put in the application, they said, we need your birth certificate. So I was like, okay then. So I said, look, bring it back. By the time they had come back with my birth certificate and I had submitted it, that's when they told me again, you're not British. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm a bit puzzled. What do you mean
Yeah.
I'm not British? I've got children here. I'm a big and I've worked as well. But no, it was just like a long journey where obviously I knew that there was nothing I could do. So I just continued working. I decided to take, as the kids got older, I said, right, now let me just like semi-retire. And I took a part-time position in 2008. I think I got the job. 2009, I got the job. And I took a job as a GP practice administrator. And that's when it just went wrong for me, because the manager to interview,
Employed you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was quite happy with my CV because I had extensive CV of doing administration within the NHS. And she said, yeah, I applied for the job as a receptionist, but she said I was overqualified. They needed someone to oversee the receptionist and they needed an administrator. I said, I'll take the position. I don't mind. Would I get more money, but same hours?
Yeah.
She said, yeah, fine. So I took on that position. Then the new manager who came in wasn't happy with my position or my status, because he didn't think that I was British, because I couldn't obtain a British passport. I needed to get a Dominican passport. So I applied for one from over here, from our
Yeah.
High Commission, and I got that.
Mhm.
But in between that, my youngest son, I had to apply for a Dominican passport for him also, because they didn't class him as British.
Even though he
So
was born here.
even though he was born here,
Right.
but he's my child. I didn't get on with his father, so
Mhm.
it was he took my name, and it was just like me and him. But at that time they were classing it, if your mother wasn't British, then you wasn't British.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I continued trying to get different ways, look up different ways to see, well, how can we make them see that we're British? And I applied for a British status letter to say we're British subjects. So I had to think so, like 90 odd pounds for each of us. That
Mhm.
got rejected. I started looking on .gov. I tried to apply for indefinite leave to remain for both
Mhm.
of us. They turned that down. Right of abode, they turned that down. So it was like we were just stuck. It didn't help. My son was becoming more and more sort of like depressed about it, because he could see his friends and his siblings able to leave the country, but he couldn't, because he was a bit like frightened. But even though he had all these documents, he had his Dominican passport, and he took a trip to Dominica Republic just for,
Mhm.
I think it was 2 weeks. And coming back into the country, he had his birth certificate, he had his driver's license with him, but come back into the country, they stopped him and they were threatening him with deportation. And he called me and I was like, what's your mom? They're going to deport. I said, what do you mean they're going to deport you? He said, yeah, they're thinking about deporting me. So I said, why? He said, oh, and I came off the phone. So I said to him, well, there's nothing I can do, Boo, because there was nothing I could do. I'm panicking now. And then 2 hours
Yeah.
later, he came through the door. And in his passport, they've given him 2 months for him to regulate his status, even though he was British. So that made him become depressed, and it made me become depressed, because I had put him in a situation where he shouldn't have had to be in that situation. And that's the way that I felt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of animosity in the house between us. He wouldn't talk to me. I'd ask him. He felt thing. And it made me get to that stage where he wouldn't talk, didn't want to know. And I had reached a stage where I had contemplated suicide because I thought if I had
Mm.
gone, perhaps it would be easier for him and
Mm.
things would just be easier. Then they would find out the truth and say, well, yeah, your mom's British, so you must be British.
Yeah.
But working in mental health, um, I had seen people go through this and I never thought I'd go through it, even as a single mother. That never crossed past my mind, but it,
Yeah.
it did. But I was able to go and get counseling. I thought about my children. I thought about they've only got me, so and my grandchildren, and I tried to overcome that. But once I'd been terminated, I got a letter from my employer saying that it was terminating my job on the grounds of gross misconduct because I didn't have the right for me to live or work in this country. This manager was so horrible.
Yeah.
The partners agreed with him because they were frightened they were going to get fined. So my job was terminated. But I thought, oh, okay, well, you terminate, I'll go and get another job or I'll go and claim benefits. I went to claim benefits and there was like,
Nothing.
wow, you can't get benefits. I said, but why? I paid into this. He
So,
said, no,
so you'd worked. I'm just trying to fit the timeline. So this was the last job that you kind of like had, which you
yeah,
you got in 2009.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when was the job terminated?
In 2009, November
Y-
2009, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
But I had over 20 odd years experience with, and I had when I had like retired, I had to cash in my NHS pension.
Right.
And in order for you to have a pension with NHS, you've had to have done a certain amount of time with them
Years.
to
Yeah.
get the pension,
Yeah.
because now you can't get it. So obviously, I had this job before the 1990s for me
Yeah.
to get a pension. So it was like, gosh, I was like, well, there's a contradiction here. I NHS pension. So I had to cash in my pension, leave some because I need, because of the situation. I thought, well, if anything happens, my kids ain't,
They
there's
haven't
no one
got.
to bury
Yeah.
me. They haven't got anything.
Yeah.
So my thoughts started where, but then I couldn't get benefits because they wouldn't give me benefits. So obviously I'm a mother. I've always been a mother, and a mother will find a way for them to live. I've got three big men who
Mhm.
treat trainers as if they're running out of fashion. So they buy one and they put it to one side. um, but I found use for them. I started cleaning them up and reselling them on.
Mhm.
Um, and then I do events decorating as well, which is funerals, christenings, birthdays and that.
Mhm.
And that was, I would undercut myself sometimes just for me to have some kind of
Something.
finance coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, that's basically how I was living. And
So
my
how
children support me. Yeah.
so how long was the, because you said earlier on that they had given your son 2 months to regulate his status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um in that time, and you're trying to do the little odd jobs just to make ends meet, and you're
Mhm.
living off your family. During that time, what was the Home Office, or what were councillors or people doing and saying? Who was helping you? Was anybody helping you?
There was no help. To be honest, I approached I had reached a stage where I was trying to do searches and go around trying to find different regulations. I'd look at European legislation and say, "Oh, I fit in that," and try to grab that and say, "Well, it must mean something because I'm British." So,
Hmm.
but it everywhere I turned to, it was nothing. I approached, my MP, but there was nothing they could do at the time because maybe they knew, maybe they didn't. I couldn't question it because I was never into politics.
Hmm.
My kids used to have to drag me to go and vote because it's not going to help me. I'm still going to get paid at the end of the month, but I have to do shopping.
Yeah.
But I wasn't into politics at all. I never took any notice of it because, as far as I was concerned, I was in my country. Um, Whatever went on is going to affect me either or either way. It didn't matter who I vote for. It was they were
Yeah.
going to do what they wanted to do. But
Hmm.
when it came to this, and I saw it was getting really serious, I was like, wow. But then my sister took me on holiday. She said, "Look, I'm going to take you on holiday. Let's go." Um, we went on to Dominica for a little while, not long, maybe I think it was 3 weeks. And on return, I got stopped at the airport, and they asked me, "Oh, are you on holiday?" I said, "No, I live here." And they were like, "Well, you've got nothing in this passport." I said, "I know, but I've I've tried to find something on my dad to try and get my status regulated. So he said, okay. They made me sit down for about 2 hours. And I said to him, if you find anything on my dad, you're doing me a favor. He said, okay, Mrs. Caesar. And then they came back and he goes, look, we could see where you were doing a search for your dad and looking for different things. But we could find nothing on him. But we're going to put a warning in your passport. If you leave this country again, you won't be able to come in. So then I was stuck as well. I was stuck again, me and my son stuck. And it just wasn't, you feel as if, well, anything I do, I'm here. I can't go anywhere. There's nothing I can do, and it wasn't only me, it was me and my son, my youngest. My other three children, adult, that, older, they had British passports. And in order for them to get it, my name's got to be on there.
Yeah.
So it was really strange where they have me in the system, but then they don't have me in the system.
Yeah.
That's what I found really funny. Yeah.
But in terms of that,
do you mind if I close this blind?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Please excuse me. This is just normally me anyway. So.
If you've got any questions and you want to put them in the chat, then please take the opportunity to do that now. But it's a fascinating story, as we can hear.
Oh, that's better.
Okay, perfect. That's all right.
Yeah. See my shade. You see my glasses? They go dark.
Yeah.
I'm on holiday.
We wish we all. So in that time when you were, you, both yourself and your son, had now been told that if you leave the country again, we're not letting you back in. Did you actually feel at that time then as well that actually they may try to deport us from this country?
Of course. I remember there was a time I was going to work and I saw a letter coming from Captiva, and it said something to that effect. But I looked and I thought, oh God, this is black and white. Someone's just taking the mickey, and I screwed it up. I never ever thought about it. It wasn't until later on that I thought, oh my God, they're going to really deport me. But to where? For what? And it would have been a strange thing because my eldest daughter has a disability of being deaf, and she has mild learning difficulties, and she's only got me. Right. So I'm registered as her carer. I'm registered as her mom. So what would you have done then? But even if they did, I would take my daughter. My daughter was going to come with me. That was one of the things I said. If they're gonna get me out of this country, they better give me my pension and give me my daughter. I said, that's mine. They belong to me. That's one of the things I always used to say. Because you have to put in a bit of humor because it puts you feel so down about it. And every time I thought, I didn't have a care in the world about me as a person, because I just had to do what I had to do to try and survive. My daughter was a godsend, and so were my other two children, because they had to obviously financially help me and their brother, because they had to look about us both.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'm with the fact that it was yourself and your brother. You said you had younger siblings, yeah?
Yeah.
You had older siblings. Did it affect any of them in any way, or is it just you?
Just me and my sister just above me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So did both of you come over on your parents' passport? No,
my sister came over. She actually came over on a British passport. It was the black one, and it said United Kingdom. So hers wasn't so much as bad as mine, because I never had a passport.
Yeah.
I
were
didn't
too
have
young. You were 3 months old.
Obviously, yeah. So I didn't have a passport, but she did. So I think that's where she was still in the same boat, but not as serious as mine. We both used to go out trying to see if we could. We went to Kew Gardens, to the archives, to see if we could get any information on my father. We could get nothing. The only thing we could obtain was my mum and dad's marriage certificate, because they actually got married here, just before my other sister was born. well, the first youngest one on that side, I've got to say, because I do it like that.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
trying to work it out. Yeah. So that was the only thing we could find. And then I think there was some paperwork on when Daddy had purchased the house, but that was the only thing we could find, but nothing else. And it was so strange because I'm thinking, hold on, Daddy's on their birth certificate. So was he gone? Where is he? Daddy bought a house. Daddy worked for a while. Where's everything gone on him? And he was in hospital. So where's
Yeah.
everything gone on him? It was strange not being able to find that. But then legislation kept changing because I would look one time and I'd say, oh, you need everything on the mother. And by the time I gathered that information, right, I'm ready. Let me just check. Oh, you need something on the father. And it was back and forth. But yet they made the ruling on my son because he was my
Because
child. They didn't
and
class him as British. So it kept changing all the time.
right.
So by the
Okay.
time you get that information, you think, right, I'm ready. Oh, it's changed again. And it was like that, bouncing back and forth.
How much information? Tell us about then the situation of going. How did you get your status? What did you have to go through in order to get your status?
Oh, well, so this, I was actually, I live in East London and I was in South London doing a funeral and I was doing the tables. And then my sister, the one who came over on British passport, she called me and she said, oh my God, there's people on the telly just like what we're going through. So I said, really? She said, yeah. She said, I just got a call from that ITV and said, would I be interested in talking? And she said, I told them it's not me, it's my sister you need to worry about. So she said, they're going to call you. I said, okay. They called me and they said, can we interview? I said, yeah, of course. They said, how long is it going to take you? I said, I'll be there in 45 minutes. I think it took me half an hour. I put my foot down.
Listen, I don't.
I'm not missing this chance at all. So by the time I'd come here, like I said, I didn't have a care in the world about myself. I just was doing things so I could live. I was bloated. I had gray. My hair was going gray. But when I got there, I didn't know what to put on, and I just pulled out all the paperwork I had accumulated, and I was like, "This is it. This is my life. What I'm trying to show them that I have been." To look for school records, that was ridiculous because I think after 50 years they get rid of all of that. So I didn't have nothing. My mum, I think because I was a middle child, my mum spoiled me a lot. She used to take a lot of money. You don't need that. You can't do this. Let me hold it. So, school pictures. I don't think I've even got one of me. My mum had all of that. But once it had gone onto, I think ITV interviewed me, and once that had gone onto ITV, well, that was it. I was getting calls from the Home Office. I was like, oh my God, they never called me when they had my money. They're calling me now. I think it was the 12th of April, I think it was, 2018. 7 days later, I was called into the office. They then told me that I'm a British citizen. Thinking, oh, well, okay, thank you for this piece of paper, but I knew this all along. But they asked me, have you any questions? Now, bearing in mind, I had a friend of mine who I'd known for over 40 odd years. Our children had grew up together, and she was going through the same thing. She was married to a British citizen, had children, and they had revoked her driving license, and she couldn't get a passport either. But we didn't know this. I didn't know this, even though we knew each other for so long. And when she saw me and she said, I'm going through the same thing. I said, look, come here. I've got an interview. I've had my interview with ITV. You're doing BBC tonight because they want to talk to me, but I want them to know about your story because it's completely different from mine. But it's showing what, as a community, we're going through. So I brought her along with me for us to go and get our citizenship. And she got hers the same day. I got mine. And they said, Mrs. Caesar, is there any questions? I said, yes. What's the implication on children born to parents like myself? And that's when they said to me, oh, no, they called my son's name. No, oh, no, don't worry. Oh, he's got his citizenship. And that was it for me. That was the effort for the whole of this. The first time I actually cried because this journey was all about him belonging. Because I always say to everyone, I could have gone back to Dominica, pulled Tanya from the ground and, pull a plant in coconut water and ate. But in his country, what would he have done,
Yeah. So they could trace and find your details in after you had gone on TV and was explaining your story and the whole
That,
media thing blew up in their face, they
yeah,
could find the information then because you were almost like whistleblowing or telling your story, but
yeah,
they couldn't find it before when you were bringing the evidence to them.
exactly. You would think this is exactly it. Even though I had sent all this evidence to them,
Mhm.
when mommy and daddy got married, I was in their wedding. And I'd sent all of this to them in order for
Yeah.
me to try and get the right of abode and, thing. But it was no, no, you're still not British. No, I was like, okay. Oh, but because Dominica became independent, but I was here when that country became independent. It's not my fault they became independent. I was here. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
here. I was here.
Yeah.
And you would think that people would. I worked in mental health, and if I had lost, I knew every patient I knew them, and if I had lost their file or lost them in the community, I'd get reprimanded because it's part of my job to ensure that we know about that person. So for a large organization like that to not know about me, who's been in this country, paid taxes, paid national insurance, gave birth to children, that doesn't make any sense. And then to
That's right.
just want to reject someone, it doesn't make it. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I was like, well, I've implemented systems. I know what systems are about. How? How do you do this? But once it
Very.
went public, um, yeah, I got my citizenship. I got my son got his passport. His brothers could not believe. They were like, "Are you sure it's real?" I said, "It's real." No, no. Did they really say? I said, "They really said he is." And then as soon as they got that paper, they up
They
to the run and
they
get
went,
that
uh-huh.
passport for him, and he was like, "I got it now." And they flew out. The next month, they were out. They
They
flew
were
out.
gone. They were gone. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But one of the things which strikes me from this story is, or from your account, is the fact that as you were going through, it wasn't necessarily always just about you. You were always looking out because when you heard about your friend's situation, you'd known her. It was kind of like, well, you know what? I'm almost sorted. We need to sort you out. So from a very early stage, you were looking out not just for you, but for other people. Am I right in saying that?
It's yeah, I did because I thought I always think like that because I think my mum brought me up like that to um remember how fortunate you are because some people ain't as fortunate as you.
Hmm.
And that's always stuck in my mind. And my children as well, that's my towards them as I teach them the same thing and my grandchildren. You're
Hmm.
more fortunate than some, but always be there to willing to help somebody. So once I had found out I had done nothing wrong, I
Hmm.
said, no, there's got to be other people out there. And people started reaching out to me. They would reach
Hmm.
out to me. Um, I think the first time that this all blew up and then the compensation scheme started,
Hmm.
the first offer they made me was £22,264. I will never forget it.
Hmm.
And I came in, I looked at this letter and I said, no way. No way. I had to laugh because I was thinking 22. I've been out of work for going on 11 years. What are you talking about? I couldn't sign on. So I put it up on my social media platform, Facebook, and I said, these people are really taking the mickey.
Yeah.
And someone reached out and they said, what's wrong? And I said, they're taking the mickey. They said, how can we help? I said, get me a reporter and get me a cameraman here today.
Hmm.
And I had actually got two reporters and two cameramen at the same time. And I basically just went on and I said, no, there's no way that you can be handling, someone like this. I said, my case is very high profile. We're not peasants, we're hungry, but you can't throw breadcrumbs at us.
Right.
Um, and then I thought, well, if you're treating me like that, how are you treating everybody else? Anybody else just coming along? And I was like, no, you can't do this. There's no way. But then people started reaching out to me. I was getting calls. I was getting on my social media platforms. People were sending me messages. Can you call me? And I'd call them back and they'd say, oh, Glenn, I got made an offer, but I'm really desperate. I really need it. And I said, okay, let me just say something to you. Did you get £7,000 for impact on life? And they were like, how do you know? I said, refuse the offer and then I'll talk to you later. And calls were coming in. It was always the same stuff. But then a group of people who were actual claimants, we came together and we formed, like, the group Windrush Lives was formed already
Mhm.
under another gentleman called Anthony Williams. But
Yeah.
then once they'd reached out to me, I was like, oh yeah, I'm coming in with you lot because this is real. And then we formed a group and we started challenging the Home Office. I think they became a bit frightened of us because each of us had individual stories about the different categories on this compensation and how it affected us. It might have been in employment, it might have been homelessness, but we all came together and we had a meeting with the then permanent secretary, who was, I think, Philip Rockman, I think it was, I think that was his name, and the head of the compensation team at the time, which was Daniel Hobbs. And we basically told our stories to them individually. And I remember saying to permanent secretary, would you take 13,000 if you had been unemployed for 10 years? And he was like, oh, okay, we understand. We'll get back to you. And that was in November 2020. By December 2020, they had trebled, quadrupled the impact on life
Wow.
payments. But it still was about everybody else getting. Some people were happy, some people, they had made me three offers. The second offer they made me, I looked at it and I laughed. I said, no, get your calculator out, do it again, because I had all the documents to prove to them, there's something wrong here. That does not add up. Um, I know a lot of people who would have been, but if I was working and I could produce my pay slips to you, then you're supposed to do the sums of
That's
how
right.
much she got a month, what she was
Yeah.
getting. Yeah, and I had all of that. This all
Yeah.
done top of my head. I had all of this, and they had access to this as well because they've got access to HMRC and the
Yeah.
information from there. Even DWP, they had the information from there as well. But they did make me an offer. I accepted it. I consulted my children. Do you think? And they said, "Yeah, Mum, don't put yourself through all of this again. They've
Mhm.
validated you." And I said,
Mhm.
"Okay." So once I had been validated and I'd seen what I had to go through, I said, okay, it's my time for me to help everybody else. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm doing now as an advocate.
So you got,
Uh,
because I know when I met you, it was that a Windrush compensation um awareness program.
yeah.
And one of the things which came out at that time was the underrepresentation, even though it's supposedly for those affected, it was the low take up or even the low awareness that the compensation scheme is available to them. Uh,
This is exactly it. And what we were finding out is that there were people who had been deported, there were people who had left the country who had been affected, but there was no way of reaching out to them to let them know, look, you can come and claim. And the cohort of people that this affected were people, elderly people, because don't forget this, the Windrush boat came in 1948.
mm,
So from 1948 to 1971, 73, we've got all these people coming in, and these are the people that they were sort of like saying, "Oh no, you got to go now." And a lot of people took it. Was it repatriation? I remember they were saying to people, "You could have money if you would go back." So a lot of people did take that, whereas they didn't have to take that. A lot of
yeah.
people put in applications for naturalizations, whereas they didn't have to because they were British citizens already. You know, and when there's I'm 61. So can you
Mhm.
imagine the age group above me who
Yeah.
have gone through this? And I thought, some of them were like, oh no, I'm all right. I'll just stay as I am. I was like, but you're entitled to this. You're entitled to even a passport, even to say that you're British, because they may still come after you. If they don't come after you, if you don't regulate it now, it's going to affect the people under you. Do you know?
Mhm.
So you have to just do this, please, just do this. But what we found is that a lot of people, even within my age group and a little bit younger, stress was killing them because this was putting a major stress on them. And
Mm.
people like myself, Windrush Lives, we stand up to make sure that we can reach out to them. But the Home Office is so, you know,
Yeah.
can I say?
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm I'm a bit flummoxed in the low take up of this. And in terms of when you spoke about when you were trying to actually demonstrate your status, the amount of paperwork and stuff that you produced, and it seemed that they changed the goalpost every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of like what's happening in the Windrush compensation scheme? Because do you know how much has been paid out compared to how much they say is available? What's
To be honest, I don't take any notice of their numbers because I know it's incorrect. So to me, it's just like something they've picked off the top of their head because it makes no sense. In the beginning, when this scheme started, they said that they were expecting over 15,000 people. There is 15,000 people out there that needs to be, but they haven't reached out to them. And they know that the pressure that they're putting on these people we argued about that. You can't expect people to find paperwork because at first it was that you got to find paperwork for every year that you've been in this country. That's ridiculous. The first meeting I went to, I will never forget this. I went in by myself. I looked across and I saw two gentlemen that I grew up as a young girl, and they were living on the streets as vagrants. And as a young person, oh God, they're trapped. You don't know. It wasn't until after I saw it and I said, oh my God, I'll never judge anyone again because that's a story to tell. And they were Windrush victims. They were caught up in this scandal, So how many more is out there that's homeless? I'll give you this scandal affected so many. It affected people of color. There's no doubt about it. And I'll show you another example, right? Because my one was because I came into this country on my mother's passport. But a gentleman reached out to me via Twitter. He was living on the streets, born in this country, of mixed race, but he's got an African name. His passport got lost. He tried to make an application for the passport. They told him, no, he's got to apply for a Nigerian passport. He said, why? Because your father's Nigerian. He said, but I'm born there. He said, no. Anyway, he ended up on the streets, living on the streets. So when he reached out to me, he told me his story. I was so sorry for him because he ended up living in a tent. He bought a van. When he left the tent there, they took everything away. It was just him and his dog. Oh, listen, I don't talk Cockney. He's proper Cockney. Proper. But he told me his story. He said, but I'm British, man. And they won't give me they're telling me I must apply for an apply, Then his phone went. He didn't have no money. And I was panicking. I was like, oh my God, am I going to reach this man? He ain't got no day. Can't I send him a £10 or something to get like credit? And it was later on, he joined Windrush Lives. He's still very angry. But after speaking to me, I saw that I said to him, well, go to this person and go to that person. Because that's part of my job as working in mental health, working with vulnerable people. I knew different organizations you could go to. He managed to get a roof over his head. But he said to me, we had a meeting with the Home Affairs Select Committee, and it was on that meeting, he said, when I called Glenda, she answered the phone because I was just about to slip my wrist because I'd given up hope. And this is someone who was born in this country. So you see the effect it had on different people. And we had to get these stories out to them to realize that how this whole thing had affected people. And like I always say, if someone like myself, and I thought I was a strong person because I raised my 4 children by myself. But then I contemplated taking suicide over this, but I never contemplated it as a single mom. But this situation had put me in that. And then to this gentleman as well, he made me cry when I was like, told me this, never told me this. But it made me feel, wow. So this is why I fight. I will fight now. I take any calls anyone sends to me. They call me and I say, all right, that's it. So that's why I say, you'll see me. I'm answering my phone. I don't care.
Yeah. No, I understand. You don't know who. I
don't
totally
know who
understand.
It is.
Yeah. Glenda, I don't see anyone's hands to ask any questions, but I'm gonna ask you because this series about belonging, how did that impact you on your sense of, did you feel like you belonged within the UK?
No, I didn't. I felt as if they had rejected me and I had done everything what I was brought up to do for England, for the UK. Go and work for the NHS. Okay, Mom. I've got children. Make sure you go and work. You get good jobs. This is your education. I was taught here. And to know that they just rejected me, I felt like my mum had said, I don't want you. That's exactly how I felt. I don't want you no more. I was like, but I haven't done anything wrong. What did I do?
Mm,
And to have someone to cower in a corner, can you imagine what's going
mm,
on in my, and you're trying everything for you to say, like me, please like me. Whereas he should have liked me anyway, not
mm,
rejected me. And that was my mindset for a very long time. But I think the other day I nearly gave up because I was trying to get through to them on the scheme for a person that I'm claiming that I'm helping. And I think they became very personal with me. And I wanted to scream. And I said, that's it, I've had enough. And then I went, oh, hang on, you've been paid. This isn't about you, it's about them people. And if you walk away, what's going to happen to them? So I said,
yeah,
okay, now I know how
yeah.
to deal with you. And now I know how to put my mind when I'm dealing with you.
Mm.
But do I belong? No, I still don't feel as if I belong. Because they didn't make my baby belong, even though he was born there, you know. And me and my children argued a lot in between because they couldn't understand why can't you go and get a job? It was hard. Oh, calling up, I need £10. And why? Why can't you go and work? It became that until the truth came out and they were like, Mom, sorry, we didn't know. And I said, yeah, nor did I. Yeah.
I'm just gonna. That was gonna be my final question, but I'm gonna ask one more question because I think this is quite pertinent in terms of what was it that led you to tell your family about the situation? Because earlier on you had said your a good friend of yours was going through a similar situation, but the two of you hadn't said anything to either of about it. So what are some of the barriers about people talking about this? Can you do you think?
Yeah, what you find with people with the Caribbean community, especially, they don't like hanging their dirty laundry out in public. They feel a bit embarrassed because people say, "Well, why didn't you do it when they were doing it in 1983? And you should have done it." I wasn't thinking about that. I'm being honest. As a young mum, I wanted to go to the party going on next week. That's what I was there thinking about. I'm making sure I got a nappy to put on my child's, mum. I wasn't thinking about that. I told you I wasn't into politics at all. As far as I'm concerned, what did that have to do with me? And I tell everybody the same thing. I'm not lying. I was a young child.
Mhm.
But I didn't think about that. So yeah, that's basically it.
No, 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 that's fine. But I totally understand. It's kind of like because so often when we hear these stories, it's it triggers something for somebody else to say that's an
Exactly.
ordinary person just like me. They're
Yeah.
going through a similar situation, and that was one of the things which happened um, when the stories broke. It was that actually it wasn't just one, it wasn't just one or two isolated incidences. It was a collection of incidences, which then meant that it wasn't something which was accidental, but
No,
something which was deliberately done.
definitely. There's no doubt about it. And I think this is why I'm so open about this because I want people to realize that I didn't put myself in this situation. I'm just an ordinary person. I was just like, I don't call myself a housewife, a mother wife. I was just at home raising
Mm,
children. Didn't think anything like I was in this situation. You'd
mm,
see it on the television, and think, oh, poor thing,
mm.
and not realizing, oh, I'm in it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
me. Oh, it's me you're talking about, And I thought, oh, wow. So when it did hit
Mm,
me, I was like, oh, God, I'm sitting there, felt guilty afterwards watching these things on the television. And then, oh, God, but maybe they should have gone and done that because you do question yourself when you see it. But then
yeah.
I fell into that category and I didn't have to. And then once I'd realized it's not only me, and I fought and I fight and I challenge and I don't stop challenging. I've made I've made them change 3 different policies on this scheme, and I'm going to continue until they get it right and they reach out to everybody, and everybody gets what they're entitled to. And it's not so much about the financial side of it; it's about making people feel guilty as if they'd done something wrong.
Mm.
So you can't blame yourself. What you have to do is you've got to challenge them and say, you put me in this situation. I didn't ask to be here. I did not. My son, my oldest son, is like, Mom, they should have just given you a passport in the beginning. I don't know why they rattled your cage. I said, yeah, you're right. Right.
I understand that. Well, you know what? For a time such as these, right? it wasn't necessarily, I'm not going to say it wasn't necessarily for you, because it was for you, but it was also for the impact that you're having on so many other people who may have been lost had it not been for for what you're going through and what you had to experience. So I'm going to ask one final question. What advice would you give to someone if they find themselves in a similar kind of situation? What can they do?
Reach out. You can reach out to me. I'm on every platform there is possible, and I answer everything. There's also the organization Windrush Lives, which is www.windrushlives, lives is lives.com. There's also the Windrush National Organization, which is it's like an umbrella of all these different advocates in different areas across London, across England. Sorry, and we all try to help each other. Because so if someone from Manchester called me and I can't get to them, then I will direct it to someone who can help them. But the help is out there. I say that a lot of people think that you do need legal help. There's no doubt about it, because sometimes it can be difficult and you have to know how to complete the form in order for you to get what you need. I've got the help of Windrush Justice Clinic, and also I think it's King's College Legal Clinic. We just recently got the assistance from them. So reach out. I will give you the information. I don't mind. I'm on Facebook as Glenda Caesar. I'm on Instagram as Lady GC25. And my favorite one is Twitter. That's where they scrutinize it. And they think, oh God, what's she going to say next?
Listen, your name is Caesar. It might not be Julius Caesar. It's Glenda Caesar. And you're here to make commands, right? So it is. You've been.
Thank you much.
It's been absolutely brilliant having you as our guest this afternoon.
Yeah.
And we are working on something, because I know that even within our community, that there are people who need to hear and need to speak to you. So Glenda, it's not going to be the last time that we're in conversation together.
It won't be the last time you see me. I think I'm all over the city everywhere. I think I am. I have my own show. I don't know, but we'll see.
Well, listen, we can sort something out, and I'm waiting for your memoirs. I'm waiting for that book. All right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna just show everyone what's going to be happening for next week. But it was an amazing conversation today with Glenda. Next week, we're going to have Professor Ollie Falenya, and he is a chartered chemical engineer working in the the energy industry, and he is the co-founder of the Association for Black Engineers. So we're going to have him as our guest next week. If you have missed any of the others, or if you'd like to catch up on some of the other conversations which we've had, please go to our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO. And we've got some other pieces which just give some stories of some of the first 100 guests. And as I say, if it wasn't for the willingness of people to share their stories, we may never know about the intricate and interesting lives that so many people are leading. So please tune in and keep us in mind, and keep finding your sense of belonging. Thank you very much, and I will see you all next week.